Unidentified.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha, wherever you are at around the world. Welcome back to another live edition of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. Thank you so much for stopping by. I just want to say hello to everyone who's in the chat. Alien Girl, UFO Historian, Majestic Q Clearance. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is going to be a very interesting interview. We have today, and I got his bio up here, so I'm going to read it because I can't memorize things right now. I've got a lot of stuff going on. So, Mark O'Connell is a screenwriter, teacher, and blogger. He wrote episodes for Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and has developed feature film projects with major studios, including Walt Disney and DreamWorks and Animation. He is also the founder of UFO blog High Strangeness. He lives in Wisconsin with his lady, Mr. Mark O'Connell. Welcome. Thank you so much, sir, for coming aboard and getting weird with me here. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Louise. Thanks for having me. And I need to correct you. We just moved to Georgia.
Oh,
just a couple of months ago. We're outside of Atlanta now.
Tell you what, man, there's another sort of, I'm in California and I'm thinking about moving to Georgia. It's a serious consideration because I'm an actor out here. So the only thing that really keeps me out in California is the fact that, it's all sort of happening out here. Mm-hmm. But Atlanta's got a brand new enormous studio. And I know that a lot of things are being shot out there, and they're starting to cast a little bit out there too. So
we're within a couple of miles of, I think, 3 film studios.
Okay.
I mean, they're everywhere you look out here. It's not just one. I mean, there's Tyler Perry's huge complex, and it's kind of amazing.
Well, that's what happens. You open, and I think that's what happened. Tyler Perry just opened a massive one, and then other studios were like, well, we might as well start building our stuff out there so we don't have to pay him, because God, Hollywood seems to hate Tyler Perry, and I think he's awesome. I'm not a fan of his work. Like, I don't love Tyler Perry movies, but I love that he's like, you guys don't want to make my movies? Fine, I'll build my own studio out in the middle of nowhere that's cheap and do my own thing. And it worked, and other studios had to start using his stuff. Yeah. And now they're sort of, following in line with his program, which is, I like to see stuff like that.
You got to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Mark O'Connell. Did you grow up in Wisconsin?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I have a deep love for Wisconsin. One of my best friends is from Appleton.
Oh, cool.
And I specifically went out there for one purpose and one purpose only. And that was to go watch a Packers game in Lambeau Stadium, because I've got a deep fascination with old historic stadiums. Like, there's something about, I grew up in the Orange Bowl watching the Miami Hurricanes, and they destroyed that stadium. And so I've been to I was at the old Yankee Stadium. Ironically, the day Mickey Mantle died, I watched Cal Ripken Jr. play in Camden Yards. I've just, these old stadiums are cool. So I was like, man, I gotta go see Brett Favre play at Lambeau Field. So are you a football fan at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you a Packers fan then? You have to, right? Kind of by where you grew up. So what is it about? I'm assuming you've been to a game. What is it about that place that is sort of like holy ground almost? And it's funny because it's built in the middle of like this neighborhood, like very cookie cutter, small houses neighborhood.
Yeah, and I worked with a guy once who had recently moved to Green Bay, and he said house hunting was a nightmare because he said every house we looked at, there's one room that's a Packers shrine. There's one room in every house that's all green and gold.
Every restaurant, every bank, every anything with walls and a bathroom has a Packers shrine.
Pretty much, I think what makes it so special is because the community owns the team.
Yeah.
That sense of ownership is really, really a big deal. It gives everyone a really strong sense of pride, a really strong sense of accomplishment when the Packers do well, and even when they're not doing well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's totally unique, I think, in the world of professional sports, and it's a wonderful thing. And Lambeau Field is, you probably know this. It's a destination. It's a tourist attraction.
Absolutely.
It really is. I mean, I heard this story once about how Ron Wolf his office window overlooked the entrance to Lambeau, and he'd always look out of his office window and he'd see, oh my God, there's a bridal party like doing their photos in front of Lambeau Field. Oh my God, there's some work trip thing taking picture, and he thought, why not open up the doors and make it like a touristy place? So they did, and it's been incredibly successful.
No, it's a good idea, man. I wonder if in, a million years, if that place is even still standing, if it's possible, which it's probably would be dust by then. But if it somehow survived, almost like the Great Pyramids, and people unearthed it, and they found this, they'd be like, what the hell is this? What is going on? And it looks like a shrine. It looks like something where people pray. It
totally does.
Like they would probably, I don't know how in what directions Lambeau points, but it's perfect. It's a perfect, direction north. They would all sorts of weird things, but I was going to say, the other thing I noticed when I went first of all, I went to a game where they played the Patriots. It was the Patriots and the Packers. And it was like Brett Favre got hurt in that game, and the Patriots destroyed the Packers like 48-0. It was the worst loss in a long time in that stadium. And I was there for it.
Oh boy.
Woo! I bought a Packers parka at a local sports store. And that's the only time I've worn it. It's the only time I've worn it was at that game. And I was like, hell yeah, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go hard. But what I did notice was there was a lot of hunting, like hunters, like orange vests, where it's just like very, very bright. I'm like, man, there's a lot of guys that might have guns in this stadium.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun. Okay, so growing up in Wisconsin, how did you? I guess what were you interested as a kid? What got you into this writing path?
Well, I didn't get into the writing path until I was in college, really.
Okay.
But as a little kid, I fell in love with science fiction like immediately. I always like to tell this story. My first conscious memory is I was 3 years old, and my mom was watching this brand new science fiction show, The Outer Limits. Which was this old black and white anthology science fiction show. It's still considered a classic, definitely by me. But the premiere episode had this terrifying to me as a 3-year-old, terrifying alien. And when this alien showed up on screen, I ran up the steps and hid around the corner. And I told my mom I wouldn't come out until the monster went away.
Yeah.
And instead of, being a good mom and like switching channels or turning off the TV so I wouldn't be afraid, she just watched the show. She watched the show, and when it was over, she told me that it was safe now. So I came back downstairs. So, and that's how it all got started. Ever since then, I've just been a huge nut about science fiction and space, and NASA and aliens, and just science in general. I've just been crazy about it, and along with that came a love of the paranormal. We had I grew up in a real small town. We had a real small library. But every time I went there, I'd go straight to the one bookshelf in the corner that had, we had 1 or 2 UFO books and 1 or 2, Bermuda Triangle books and Bigfoot and poltergeists. And I would always go directly to that bookshelf. And I probably read each of those books, 5 times each.
Yeah. It's so funny. Those are 2 very parallel things that happened to me, except the difference is the movie for me was my dad I grew up in Florida. And so fishing, going out every weekend on the boat and going fishing was a big thing for us. Yeah. And he's like, hey, do you want to watch a fishing movie? And I'm like 6, 7 years old. I'm like, of course I do. Yes. Movie he pops in, Jaws. Absolutely, maybe possibly ruin me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. And then the other thing is just sort of the recollection of my early life as well as in elementary school, the first place I would go in our library, because it wasn't a small town, but going to the library wasn't something my mom had time to do for us on the weekends, and so that was the only library I had really had access to, was the school library, and I would dart right to that section anytime they gave us a break to go to the library. And so, yeah, I can relate to that, and that's fun. So if you weren't writing as a young child, what were you? I guess, were you just a fan of the comic books and the TV shows? That was sort of your outlet for it. And I mean, what did you do in high school? Were you a big sports guy? Were you an actor? I mean,
wow, that's like a whole lot of questions.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to get to know you, because I like your career. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, after The Outer Limits in the early '60s, then came Star Trek in 1966.
Right.
I got totally hooked on that, and I can still remember in 1966. So I was 6 years old. Star Trek was on NBC on Thursday nights from 6:30 to 7:30. And my bedtime on a school night was 7. Right. So I could only see the first half of Star Trek. And I also remember begging to my parents to let me stay up just an extra half hour on Thursday night just to watch Star Trek. I think I must have won that argument at least part of the time.
Yeah.
Then I got into high school and, started meeting friends who were crazy about movies and science fiction and TV and stuff. And I started making my own goofy movies. And I do remember, like, sophomore year in high school, my English teacher, who I really liked a lot, we're still friends, he asked me one day, he said, "O'Connell, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, well, nobody had ever asked me that before. And I said, well, I either want to be a car designer or I want to make movies. And Pat thought for a minute and he said, "Make movies." So that basically the decision was made right there. The funny thing about that is, like, he and I have kept in touch, and like 20 years later, he emails me out of the blue and says, "Mark, I need help. My son wants to be a scriptwriter. How do I talk him out of it?" And I just laughed, and I wrote back. I was like, "You don't. You just have to let it be, because that's what he wants. That's what he's going to do."
Right? No, that's good advice. It's just funny that he would point at, one of his students in that direction, but look at his own child and be like, "No, you can't do this. You got to do something else." So then you got into college, and that's when I guess the writing aspect of it came in. So can you explain a little bit how you stumbled into that?
Sure. Well, I went to USC, University of Southern California, but I only went there for one semester. That's a whole long story. I won't get into all that. But I was there for one semester, and while I was there, I took all the non-major film classes I could. I figured, might as well make the most of the time I have here. Basically, I went out there thinking I had gotten into the film school, and then when I got there, I found out that I wasn't admitted into the film school. So, but during that semester, I took my first ever screenwriting class, and I didn't know anything about screenwriting. And our teacher was just this funny old relic from the Hollywood studio system. He was this very old guy. He didn't really have any like teaching technique or anything. He just told all sorts of stories about his life in old time Hollywood and the old time movie industry. Which was hugely entertaining, but didn't really teach us anything.
Right.
And honestly, Louise, I know I must have written a script for that class. I have no idea what it was. I have, which is weird because I like save everything I've ever written. Yeah. I have no.
Do you remember if it was good or not?
Oh, it probably stunk.
Terrible. Yeah, of course. Probably for your first screenplay.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. It was probably very derivative of something. That's how a lot of writers start out. You copy what you love already.
Right.
So that's how it started. Though I, despite the fact that it was such a weird class and a weird teacher, and he never really taught me anything, somehow or other, I really got to like the idea of, telling a story through a screenplay. So that's where I got started with that. That's
cool. And so when did you figure out, I can do this for a living. I can make money doing this. You know, when
I
did
still
it?
haven't
When did
figured
it
that
hit?
out.
No. I mean, well, at some point, I mean, you know, look, I'm again, I'm an actor in Hollywood. I've worked on professional sets.
We know what it's like. Yep.
You know, I know what it's like. I know how. You know, if you're part of the Writers Guild, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a writer. You know,
I'm a writer.
you've made money writing. You know, you're not a billionaire or a millionaire. That's okay, man. I mean, like one of my very good friends out here, she has a husband who's also in the WGA, and she expressed it to me this way. She's like, Lou, she's like, you have to understand, like, to get in the WGA, that's like getting into the major leagues of baseball. The percentages of you getting in there are so small that it's, you know, you really have to be consistent in at your art form and do a lot of writing before you get invited to that. And it was the same thing, you know, for me joining SAG. It was, I had to go through all of the extra work and all the grunt work and the bullshit to get in there. And then I get in there and it's, you know, I am the lowest form of actor in this town, but you know, I'm proud that I could call myself an actor. You know, and every year it gets a little better.
Yeah.
So hopefully this year, well, I mean, except for last year, it was a lot slower than normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, you're a writer, man. Come on, you wrote on Star Trek. That's awesome. So like, yeah, how did you? What was the thing where you were like, yeah, I think I could do this at least for some income. You know, I could pay some bills doing this.
Well, it took a while. After college, I ended up getting a film degree from the University of Wisconsin, which, you know, it was just one of those degrees that doesn't really get you much of anything in the real world.
Right.
But you know, but I had my degree, whatever. But I got married young, started a family. That kind of took over my 20s. But then when I was 30, I got picked up by my first agent. And that's when I felt like I was, hey, I'm becoming a professional writer.
Right.
I'm signed on with an agent. That's pretty cool. And the funny thing about it was, though, that my first opportunity with Star Trek The Next Generation, I didn't have to have an agent for that, because at the time, the showrunner for Next Generation, Michael Piller, was smart enough to realize that Star Trek fans have great imaginations and love to make up new Star Trek stories. So Piller instituted a open door policy for script submissions. That was totally unheard of. Nobody does that. Ironically, I didn't have to have an agent to submit my script to Star Trek. You know, all you had to do was sign a release form. And they would read your script and they'd let you know if it was good or not. And so my agent actually said, Mark, you should do this. You should write a script for Star Trek. So I wrote a spec script for Next Generation. And it's funny, I'm starting a new podcast and I'm actually doing a dramatic reading of this script.
Oh, that's great.
Dramatic reading of the script for my podcast.
That's awesome. Let me know if you need an actor. I'd love to sit down and do it.
Cool. So I submitted a script, waited a few months, didn't hear anything back from them, and I was kind of feeling, well, I guess it must have, you know, not made it through the pile. But then several months later, out of the blue, I get a call from one of the producers, Joe Manoski at Star Trek The Next Generation, saying, hey, Mark, we loved your script, and we want you to come in and pitch stories. And it turned out, this really surprised me, and this was a really important lesson for me as a writer. The reason they liked my script, it had nothing to do with anything that I thought was important about the script. They didn't love it because of my, you know, amazing sci-fi imagery. They didn't love it because of, you know, my clever science fiction concepts or anything. They loved it because they said you nailed the characters' voices.
Right.
So that was the first and most valuable lesson I've ever learned as a writer. That if you want to write for TV, it doesn't matter what story you're trying to tell. If you can't get the characters' voices right, then you need to do more work. Somehow or other, you know, I wrote something that they felt like they could actually hear my dialogue coming out of their characters' mouths, and so that was enough for me to get invited into pitch. So that's what really started it all.
That's awesome. No, that's not the first time I've heard that too. And just talking to writers and being around, this town. That finding that character's voice, just as long as you nail that, like, because I got a lot of friends who are writers and try to write spec scripts. So with all that said, have you had a chance? You are a Star Trek fan. What do you think? Have you seen the newest version of it on CBS?
I've watched a little,
Yeah,
and I have to admit, I always have some kind of internal resistance to watching any like new version of Star Trek, and I'm that's probably not very mature of me. I should probably be a bigger person and give it more of a try.
Yeah.
So the answer is I've kind of sampled a little bit of it here and there, and haven't really been wowed enough to keep watching. I mean, at some point, I probably will.
Well, to be fair, here's my issue. I don't have issue with Star Trek. I love Star Trek, but my dad introduced me to Star Wars first. And he's like, "Oh, if you like Star Wars, you should like Star Trek too." And when I went back to the original, and I'm like, this is stupid. This looks like I like, because I was young, and I was just like, visually you can't go from Star Wars to Star Trek visually and expect to keep, at least at that age, and you couldn't keep my attention. I was just like, no, I don't see any laser beams. Where are the lightsabers? Where's it was just, it was the wrong way I should have had Star Trek first and then Star Wars.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think I would have had a better appreciation for it. But I did love the J.J. Abrams first remake of the sort of the universe. Did you get a chance to watch that one?
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that one. I was like, this is actually a pretty good flick. Like it has everything I want in a blockbuster film. From a writing aspect, what did you think of it?
I had mixed feelings about it. I loved the first half when they reintroduced all the characters.
Yeah.
Because the casting was so good. I mean, the casting of all our favorite characters was really spot on, and that could have gone bad really badly.
Yes,
but it didn't. They did a great job casting those characters. Once they got into the science fiction story, I felt a little let down. I kind of felt like, I've kind of seen that story before. So somebody wants revenge on Spock. Okay, wow.
Right.
Didn't totally grab me, but it was good enough for me to go back and watch the second one. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll always love Star Trek, and I'll always love the fact that I'm a teeny little bit of Star Trek.
Yeah, no, I could understand that. I totally understand. Like, I don't like the sort of the newer versions of Star Wars. I'm very sort of like spoiled by what I grew up with, So I get that. I will say though, watching that film, it kind of made me go, maybe I should go back and watch some of the original Star Trek, because this is, because you're right. I think they nailed the tone of the show. And because the casting was so good, but also they filled in the little like the sounds of the ships and just little things where I was just like, it rings true. But I agree. I think the second half of the script could have been way better, right? Like, I mean, especially if you're very familiar with that Star Trek lore.
Yeah. Yeah, but Star Trek also has this ongoing problem with trying really hard never to repeat itself, but it's really hard not to, because there have just been so many episodes made and so many different versions of the show. And I would run into that pitching for the new shows all the time. Like when I pitched for Voyager, I just never got any traction with them because they just didn't know which way to go with the show. So I'd come in and I'd pitch to Jerry Taylor. And every time I pitch, I would pitch 4 stories. So I'd pitch 4 stories to Jerry Taylor, and at the end of the pitch, she'd say, "Oh, these are great. These are really great ideas, Mark." But she said, "But we've been doing focus groups with the fans, and they really don't want to see stories like this anymore. They want to see some new stuff." So she's like, "Come back to me with some stuff that's more like blah blah blah, whatever whatever the flavor of the day was there."
Right.
And I'd say, "Okay,
can you do MacGyver in space?"
So I'd go back and I'd come up with 4 new stories that fell into what Jerry wanted now, and I'd go back and pitch again. And Jerry would be like, "Oh, I see what you're doing here based on our last talk." But you said, we keep getting feedback from the fans and they want us to go back in that other direction. So sorry. And I was like, come on.
Yeah.
This is number one, this is no way to run a show. Number two, it's
Yeah.
no way to treat a writer. Come on. You can't tell me, whatever.
Yeah.
You get the idea.
Yeah.
So,
No, I've been there.
But I think that's symptomatic of the problem that they've had with Star Trek Forever. It's like they want to make each new version different enough to make it stand out and be unique and to bring in a new audience, which is all perfectly fine. So they have to make it new enough for that, but at the same time, they're so scared of making it too new, and making it too not Star Trek that they get into this story paralysis sometimes.
Yeah. So let me ask you this before we switch gears. What are you watching? Well, like what are you watching right now going, man, that's some great writing. I would love to write for that show.
We just watched the season 2 finale last night of Snowpiercer, and it is fantastic.
I haven't watched it, so I'm going to check it out
fantastic.
now.
I loved the movie, and the series is very different from the movie. It's sort of like a parallel timeline almost kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked but the series works just as well as the movie did. And it's phenomenal writing, phenomenal casting. Sean Bean makes one of the best bad guys I have ever seen.
I like Sean Bean.
He's amazing in Snowpiercer. Yeah. He's just amazing as the bad guy. Everybody in the show is fantastic, and and the second season finale was the show's full of surprises, and I'm pretty sure it's the same producers who did Orphan Black a couple of years ago for BBC America, which was another show that I loved. And these guys can just do no wrong. They're fantastic writers. Their plots are so intricate and so clever and so full of surprises. I just love it.
Have you, I swear to God, this is my last question about writing, but I'm geeking out with you right now. Have you watched Fargo yet on FX?
I've seen little bits and pieces. Lots of people tell me I have to watch it, and I still haven't gotten into it yet. So
the first 2 seasons, I think, are some of the best television I've ever seen.
Oh, okay.
It's really, really good. And season 3, with this newest season with Chris Rock is pretty good, but it doesn't compare to the first 2. But that's one I'd recommend to you. Okay, so switching gears. I sort of know a little bit about the backstory of how you started writing about J.Allen Hynek, but the thing that I was just fascinated about was how he got into the Steven Spielberg world, how he stumbled into that. How he felt about the film. It's one of my favorite films of all time.
Mine too.
And I wanted to get your opinion on sort of the status of it, how you felt about the writing of it, where does it belong in sort of the echelon of all-time greats. So I guess let's start there. How do you hold that film? Where do you hold it in that regard?
Oh, as far as classic science fiction films, it's probably in the top 3.
Wow.
I'd say Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Day the Earth Stood Still, and Forbidden Planet would be my top 3.
Forbidden Planet.
Top 3 favorite science fiction movies.
I don't think I've seen Forbidden Planet. I know it's an older film, right?
What?
I don't think I've seen it. I don't think
you got to check it out. You got to check it out. It's
I'll
amazing.
Check it out.
It's a really it's very old. It's 1956, I think. But it's
I'm pretty sure I know what film you're talking about.
To me, it's like the ultimate science fiction movie. So that's where Close Encounter stands. I love this story. It's one of the funniest stories of doing the research for my book, my biography of Dr. Hynek. I was digging through his files at his Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois. After I had been basically drafted to write the book by Kufos. And I'm digging through his files, and I get to the letter S, and 2 file folders jump out at me. One is labeled Sagan, and the other is labeled Spielberg.
This is like the best file I've ever heard of.
My eyes lit up when I saw those 2 files.
Oh man!
So I pull out the Spielberg folder, and I open it up, and the very first thing on the top of the pile, it's a copy of a letter that Dr. Hynek had written to Steven Spielberg in, I think, sometime around 1975. And Hynek is being extremely painfully polite in this letter, in which he's saying, "Dear Mr. Spielberg, I have learned from a friend that you are using my terminology as the title for your movie, and I really wish you had asked me first if you could use my material. I didn't appreciate, finding out about it from a friend. You should
Let
have
me
asked
ask
me
you,
first.
how far into filming was Spielberg when he wrote that letter?
I suspect they were still in pre-production
Okay.
at this time,
So he
because
found out about it early then.
yeah, he found out about it early. And I've talked to a couple different people who say they're the one who told him about it, but whatever, that doesn't matter. He found out about it. He wrote this exceedingly polite letter to Steven Spielberg saying, "Dude, you stole my stuff.
Yeah.
How are you going to make it up to me?" in the most polite language imaginable.
Yeah.
And then the very next letter in the file was a return letter from Spielberg saying, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I had no idea that was your terminology." He said, "Your book is amazingly valuable." He's like, "I make sure your book is required reading for everybody on my crew." And he's talking about Hynek's book, The UFO Experience.
I don't mean to stop you, but like, how did Steve? I see, like, this is where I don't believe Spielberg. Like, how does Spielberg require everyone to read Hynek's book and not know that that's the term that he came up with?
Yeah, you're right. That's the funny part of the explanation.
Like, that's Hollywood, man.
Because that's the book where Hynek presents for the first time the Close Encounters scheme. Yeah, you're right. So for Spielberg to say I didn't know, it's a little fishy.
It's disingenuous. He's either lying about passing around that, but like now I'm like, I'm thinking about Spielberg. He's either lying about passing that book around, or he's just right. He's just like, okay, we got to apologize to this guy so he doesn't sue us. What can we possibly say to make this guy not sue us? And so, okay,
yeah, there's definitely that feel to it for sure. Yeah. So what happens is, well, they settle it like adults. They're both grown up about it, and they work out a package where Spielberg buys the rights to the term Close Encounters of the Third Kind for $1,000. Mm-hmm. He pays Hynek an additional $1,000 for rights to use any of the material inside the book. And then he pays Hynek $500 a day for 3 days of consulting on set at the airplane hangar in Alabama, where they built the set for the gigantic UFO landing base, the secret UFO landing base. Mm-hmm. So all told, Hynek gets $3,500 out of the deal. Right. But even more valuable, though, he gets that 6-second cameo shot towards the end of the movie after the mothership lands and all the aliens are coming out. Right. There's that 6-second shot of Hynek sort of pushing his way through all the technicians to get up into the front row so he can get a better look at the aliens. And as he's doing it, he's kind of fiddling with his pipe, and he's kind of fiddling with his famous goatee. Yep. And so, so the upshot of it is he gets a little bit of money. He gets his name in the credits. He gets a 6-second scene. And this was another interesting little bonus. Columbia Pictures agreed to print information on how to contact Dr. Hynek on the movie posters. So every original movie poster from Close Encounters of the Third Kind should have Hynek's contact, or the contact info for his Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, in the lower corner of the poster. Yeah.
If I ever buy or look for that poster, I'll look for that stamp on there.
I've been looking for one. I haven't seen one, but I would love to see it. So so the upshot is Hynek, in retrospect, Hynek was a little embarrassed that he settled for such a tiny amount of money, $3,500. And he said, if there's ever a sequel, he said, I hope I'll be a much better businessman.
Mark, I was just thinking, man, he really undervalued what he got. The only thing I would have added to that would be just points, back end points on the film. Mm-hmm. Hey, give me 0.2% of the back end gross profit of the film, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, and that brings up another point. Nobody at that point in pre-production had any idea what a hit the movie was going to be. Nobody had a clue. They had no idea how valuable any of this stuff would be.
But the production company knew. Steven Spielberg knew. He had just finished Jaws, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the studio was giving him, they're like, holy shit, Jaws is going to be a smash. It's not out yet, but when it does come out, this is going to be a great promotion for Close Encounters.
Yeah, you're right.
So They knew. They knew. They
and
knew.
they gave Spielberg anything he wanted at that point.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly. Because they knew it was the future.
Another point that brings up though is it's a really big part of who Dr. Hynek was though.
Yeah.
That he wasn't in it for the money. He wasn't.
Right.
I mean, he would have been happy to get rich from his UFO work, of course. Why not? But that's not what he was out for. That's not what he was after. He wasn't trying to get rich. He wasn't trying to be a UFO guru. So the fact that he worked out this deal for this movie to get made for such a small amount of money, it's very much in keeping with the kind of person Hynek was. Educating the public, getting his message out was more important to him than lining his pockets.
But what would have been cool though is if he did line his pockets with what just I think is a fair deal. Like if he had, let's say he had gotten, I don't know what the profits on the film were, but let's say he made $2 million off the film between the release and DVDs and all of the merchandise and everything. He could take that $2 million and really enhance his center for UFO studies. Like he could do a lot of good with that money. And so that's what I start to think about when I'm like, yeah, that's true. But he came up with the idea. It's his damn idea. He deserves a little piece of that. And so yeah, that kind of bums me out. But okay, so because I'm fascinated with Hynek, and I that's one of my favorite shots of the film. It's just a classic Spielberg shot.
It's
where
a really
it's a solo
nice moment.
person looking off into the distance, and it's just he's got that shot in every single film, and the fact that he saved it for Hynek, I think was a real tribute to him. I thought.
I agree. And there were also some funny stories about how they shot a few more scenes where the little childlike aliens kind of clustered around Dr. Hynek and tried to like touch him, and they took his pipe from him and they're like analyzing his pipe and sticking it up his nose and
that's cool.
tugging on his goatee.
Of course, I did not make the film.
Yeah, and Hynek was like, "Thank God it didn't make the film, because it would have been so embarrassing."
So embarrassing. I'm so happy that did not make the film as well. Okay. So the other thing, because we've only got about 20 minutes left, and I wanted to just touch on the seriousness of who J.Allen Hynek was. And from my understanding, and correct me if I'm mistaken, I mean, he was an astronomer, but he also has a lot of patents that are still used in some cases by NASA today. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I don't know that he necessarily holds patents over everything.
Yeah.
But
he invented things, right?
Yes, he invented things, and he envisioned a lot of things that came to be later. He very early on, Hynek envisioned a space-based telescope like the Hubble Space Telescope. Hynek was pushing for that as early as the early 1960s, even late 50s, I think, when NASA was first created. And he also had an idea of putting a telescope on the surface of the moon, which I thought was kind of cool. So yeah, he was involved. And probably the biggest accomplishment of his career, he pretty much single-handedly designed and implemented the first ever global satellite tracking network. Nobody thought it could be done. Most people thought we would never even succeed in launching a satellite, much less setting up a system to track that satellite. Right. So Hynek was given that job by Harvard as part of the International Geophysical Year, and Hynek set up 12 ground stations all around the globe in key spots, so that when we ultimately launched our Vanguard satellite, we would have a way of tracking it, keeping track of it as it circled the Earth. Well, as it turned out, we all know Sputnik went up first, so Hynek's tracking system was used to track Sputnik. It was a very weird turn of events, but that was a huge, huge accomplishment for Hynek.
Well, that's sort of a technology that, in fairness, is kind of still being used today, right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's without
just the very concept,
right? Like, where are we if nobody thinks of that?
Yeah.
What do our satellites even look like if that's not thought about? So, what is your favorite Hynek story? What is your favorite moment? The best thing that you wrote about where you're just like, oh my God, this is so. You just salivated when you were at at the computer or typewriter or whatever your process is.
It's hard to narrow it down to one favorite story. I mean, I just told you one of them, the
Yeah.
Sputnik, the satellite tracking system story. That's one of my favorites, just because it just shows his ingenuity and the fact that he was so well respected in the scientific community, even though he was chasing UFOs.
Mhm.
I just think it's a really wonderful story. And the really great thing about that story is the night Sputnik was launched. It was a Friday night. Everybody from the satellite tracking lab had gone home, except for Hynek and his assistant. They're just sort of making small talk, getting ready to turn out the lights and head home for the weekend. Phone rings, Hynek answers it, and it's a reporter saying, "Hey, what do you know about this Russian satellite?" And Hynek's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And the reporter says, "Seriously, something just came over the wires. The Soviet Union has just launched an artificial satellite called Sputnik. What can you tell us about it?" And Hynek's like, "Oh my God, they beat us. They beat us to it." And Hynek is literally the only scientist available to explain to the American public what the hell just happened.
Yeah.
So Hynek instantly becomes like a national hero. He's getting his picture on the cover of Life magazine. He's being interviewed on TV and
Yeah.
radio constantly because everybody's freaking out, worried that this is a Soviet attack, and they're all turning to Hynek to say, "Tell us what's going on." And Hynek is keeping everyone calm and saying, "It's okay, they're not attacking us. They sent up, a tiny little sphere the size of a basketball. All it does is beep.
Right.
Don't
Right.
worry."
Don't worry.
But that was enough to make Hynek this sort of like reassuring father figure to the nation. It's kind of a big deal.
Well, I love watching old videos of him and Stan Friedman. Their verbiage, their tone, their pacing. It just always sounds so damn intellectual. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
where has that gone? That tone and that pacing in especially our leaders and the people that we
Yeah.
look to for guidance, especially on things that we just don't understand.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a chance? I did they? Am I mistaken? Again, am I mistaken when I say that History Channel show about J.Allen Hynek and Project Blue Book? Did they base any of the stories off of your book?
No.
No. Okay.
No. And there's a whole long story behind that. They
Yeah.
announced that show just like 2 weeks before my book was published, which we always kind of thought was them trying to like plant their flag before I could. Which
Right.
who knows? So no, we were in contact with the producers before the show went into production. In fact, Paul Hynek, Dr. Hynek's son Paul, was a technical advisor for that TV show, and he actually distributed my book to all the producers and said, "Hey, we should talk to Mark about this." Well, the History Channel's response was, "Nah, it's okay. We've got our own angle on the story. We're gonna follow that." And my agent and I were kind of like, "What other angle could there be on the story? It's a biography, right?" And then the show debuted, and we were like, "Oh, they're just making everything up. That's their different narrative approach." So no, that the series had absolutely nothing to do with my book.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I don't understand why production companies and I know it's not a writer's fault because writers don't make decisions. Really, directors don't either. I'm just going to blame the studios. I don't understand why they don't think J.Allen Hynek's story isn't interesting enough to make into a television series and just try and stay to the facts as close as possible. Like that, it's interesting enough. Why do we need to add, his wife, with another woman and these spies and this and that? It was so silly. Do you think, as a writer, do you think it's possible to tell Hynek's story in a biography sort of format where it's as close to factual, maybe peppered with some juicy filler, whatever you want to call it? Is it possible? Do you think it could be done? And do you have ideas for it?
Oh yeah. Yes to both questions. I think it's possible. I think it's possible to be done, and yes, I have some ideas for it.
Man, I would love to just table read that one day, just have fun with it. I'd love to hear what your idea is, because I mean, I think it can be done. I think there are really great ways. And that's sort of why I started my channel, because I would watch these movies and TV shows and I'd go, man, this this sucks. And nobody's calling it out. Like anytime there's a new Batman movie or Star Wars movie, there's like 15, reviewers and critics who are analyzing the movie, and some of them are great, some of them are bad, but there's an audience for people reviewing these films, and I'm like, nobody's reviewing Ancient Aliens and the first two seasons of Unidentified, or the Project Blue Book. And so I was like, I saw sort of a space open there. And so yeah, it bums me out when they don't trust that the story's interesting enough, and they can't think of creative ways to make it visually more appetizing. But I mean, what do you think the future of storytelling with UAPs and UFOs is? Do you think it's what we want as artists and filmmakers, or do you think production studios and decision makers are going to still try to stick to this tired, sensationalized reality TV show format?
Boy, that's a really, really deep question. I'm not sure which way I see it going, honestly. I mean, my new reality show, UFO Witness, just debuted in January on Discovery Plus, and I think we've got a little bit of both in our show. It's hard to it's hard to separate the sensational aspects of the UFO phenomenon. It's why so many people don't take it seriously, because it's so sensational that it's like
Right.
people just can't believe it, and they can't believe that people like you and I get so wrapped up in it.
Right.
Because it's so spectacular, and I mean absurdly spectacular,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So when you try to like get rid of the spectacular stuff and just be really factual and dry, that's great from an information standpoint, but it's also harder to keep, the audience's attention if that's all you're going to do. So it's a tough line to walk. I mean, I think that's a really great question, Louise. I don't know if anyone's really solved that problem yet. Maybe just Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the movie. Maybe that's the only time it's worked.
Right. No, it's definitely one of the few times. There is a really great film. I think it's called The Signal, if I'm not mistaken, on Amazon. It's awesome. It's such a great telling of a UFO film. It is up for me. It's up there with Close Encounters, like best sci-fi film of all time. It's really, really good. But there are a couple examples. The first I think of is that Netflix special that they did about the Berkshire's UFO case. I thought that was done so damn well, and there was no CGI UFO effects. There was no moments where I'm like, man, this feels like it's being repeated or rehearsed, or they missed the shot and they're asking somebody to say it again. There's nothing forced. It was like a documentary. It just felt very, and the cinematography was so good. So I think that added a lot to it too. But then again, I look at like Jeremy Corbell's film about Bob Lazar, and for me, it's not the first film I go to when I want to learn about credible UAP stuff, but it's pure eye candy and it's entertainment to the max. But what I loved about the after effects of that film is that it sort of forced other films and production companies to up their game and make this topic a little more eye candy-ish.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. There's I can only hope that something I write raises the level of the conversation in the way you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's coming. I think it's just going to be forced eventually. I think once this information that hopefully we start expunging from our government, I think it's gonna force science to be like, all right, we have to look at this now. Like with all the woo woo and the productions and the films and the TV shows aside, like we scientifically have to look at this. You were going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, at any given time in the history of ufology, there have always been at least a handful of prominent scientists who were interested in studying the phenomenon. So what you're saying about scientists starting to study it, I think it may be more like more more scientists will start to just admit, oh yeah, I've been studying this for a while. Here's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I think one of the most exciting bits of news recently about this phenomenon is the book, and it's on my reading list. The book by the I can't remember his name, the astronomer
Avi Loeb.
Yes, his book about and I know I'll pronounce it wrong. Oumuamua.
Yeah.
I want to read that book. I think that's fascinating news and a fascinating story.
I love that a Harvard chair and professor is of the astronomy, I always want to call it the astronomy club, but it's not an astronomy club, but the astronomy wing of Harvard. That he's coming out and he's like, I'm just asking the question. Like, what's everybody getting so pissy about? Like, that's what science is supposed to do. Is it's supposed to ask the question and be open-minded to question your beliefs, your belief systems. And that's it's a hard thing to do, and it's something that I've really had to do, especially when I started talking about this. I've had to go back and say, okay, is that right? Let me really research this and look at it, and then I've had to correct myself. Like, it's okay. I wish more people would say it's okay to be wrong on this topic.
Yeah.
That's
true. That's a good point.
It's a crazy topic and nobody's right. Nobody has the answer or the information.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's okay to be wrong. Like, if you're presented with new information, just look at it. And if it changes your viewpoint, great. If it doesn't, you find flaws in it, then share them with me. So then I can look at it and see if your deduction is good or not. But anyway, so what do you think, if you had to, and I know this is just pure speculation, but what do you think Hynek's sort of final thoughts, if he had final thoughts on this topic, maybe there are final thoughts on this topic and I'm just not aware of them and about them, but what do you think his hypothesis would be on this phenomena, I guess?
I love that question because I love the answer I can give to that, and that is that late in his life, when he was in his mid 80s, and he was kind of reflecting back on his career. He had retired from teaching for a while, but he was still very active in ufology. But during this period, he started to expand his thinking about what the meaning of the UFO phenomenon might be. Okay, so he wasn't too concerned about proving anything one way or another. He never was that kind of a person because he knew he could never prove anything, right? But he started thinking in terms of, well, maybe they're not what we think they are. Maybe they're from another dimension. Maybe they're interdimensional manifestations. Or maybe, and this is my favorite, or he thought maybe it's a psychological phenomenon. And by that, he did not mean that it was a phenomenon that originated in our minds. He thought maybe this is an external phenomenon, but maybe it reaches us directly into our brains instead of going through our eyes and our ears and everything, which, are basically filtering out things. Maybe they are manifesting themselves to us directly into our consciousness. And that's why it's so hard for, say, a UFO witness who had a really real experience and is very sincere in trying to explain it, but just can't explain it in any way that makes sense.
Right.
Because it didn't come into their brain, it didn't come into their brain in the usual way.
Right.
So those were the kinds of things that Hynek was thinking. I'll also add, there was a fantastic interview of him done about a year before he passed away in Omni magazine, which I wish Omni magazine was still around. That was a fantastic magazine. So about a year before he dies, he does this very, very lengthy interview. And the interviewer asks him, well, now that you're where you are in life, what would be your favorite way to sort of wind down your UFO career? And he said, I'd love to just be in a cottage on the coast of Maine with a bunch of UFO fans, just telling UFO stories. Said, as long as the food and drinks held out, I could just keep telling stories. That's a pretty great way to look at it.
I tell you, I would move to Maine.
Me too.
I would move to Maine.
Could you imagine? And I'd keep bringing the food and drink, man. As long as he kept going, I'd be bringing the food and drink. Yeah,
that's amazing. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left, and I could talk to you about this guy all day and your career, and please come back because
I'd love to.
I've had fun, a lot of fun with this conversation so far.
Me too.
So I'm not sure if you know what I'm doing. I'm a little bit of a nutball, and I've sort of organized this event, and I'd love to invite you to it and tell you about it a little bit. It's called the Big Phone Home, and essentially I'm organizing all of these channels, UFO podcasters, YouTubers. We got a confirmation from Lou Elizondo and Sean Cahill. Hopefully they'll still be able to join us day of. And we're all going to call Congress. We're all going to call senators. We're going to focus on on 6 committees and subcommittees within our government and demand, or not demand, but kindly request more transparency, data, information, and reports on UAPs and the UAP phenomena. And I mean, ideally, I would love to see a report every year, new data points where we can study. That would be something really cool, I think. But we're going to be doing an all-day live stream from my channel. It's going to be co-hosted with Michael Mataluni. We're going to invite friends like you onto the show. New friends. I don't want to call you friend. We're not there yet, I'm sure. But I mean, we both have a deep love for the Packers. So
yeah. It's a good start.
It's a good start. So we've gotten a lot of folks on board. We're encouraging, people like you. You're starting a podcast. Talk about it, tweet about it, use our hashtags. We invite you to come talk to us for 10, 15, 20 minutes, an hour, however long you want to stay, Mark O'Connell, and just talk about what you're doing from an activism standpoint. Did you call? Did you tweet? We invite you to invite, your whatever following and fans you have. And you may not think it's a lot, but every little bit helps. And if we can get, 1,000, 2,000 people to call into Congress and politely request this information, I think it will help Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon sort of validate their claims in all of this hard work and humiliation on some aspects that they've had to deal with. So what do you say, sir? Is this something that interests you?
Definitely. Sounds like fun. It's like Night of 1,000 UFO Geeks.
Exactly.
I like it. So, it's big thinking. I like it.
Hey, man, I fingers crossed. We're going to do this every year. And the idea is to get the conversation to be taken more seriously. Right. And
that's everyone's goal. Yeah.
We want more data. And by the way, just for everybody, and I'm sorry I didn't get to questions for Mark. I always love to just focus on my speakers. So it's tough to be a producer, but I want to say thank you to everybody. And I'm sure they've had questions for you, Mark, and we'll answer these questions when you come back. But we've got Ziegler in the chat. We've got Explorer Lab, Alien Girl, Brandy, Space Ghost, ton of people that have stopped by that are packing in and coming out. So I'm sure they're incredibly stoked to hear that you're on board with us in doing this effort. So thank you for that. And so is there anything you'd like to leave us with? What you're working on next, where people can find your stuff? The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I thank you. Well, my book, The Close Encounters Man, How One Man Made the World Believe in UFOs.
Which, by the way, I have right here.
Oh, thank you. There you go. It's available on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Noble. You can find it in your local indie bookshop. I just found out recently that the audiobook version is coming out on Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
Yes.
So I'm pretty pumped about that. And I do have a new podcast coming. I'm just sort of this is all new to me, so I'm taking it baby steps right now.
Can I give you a piece of advice, Mark?
Yes, please.
Just get to 50 episodes. By the time it's something about that number. You get to that number and you start to find it's like anything. You start to find a good workflow that works. You find the voice of the podcast. It's something about that number that really, at least for me, I got the 50. I was like, okay, I think I got a really good handle on this. And it just started flowing and started getting better. That's just my piece of advice. 50 might be a crazy number, but hey, man, there are podcasts out there. I don't know how often you plan on doing yours, but there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of content. People are yearning for it. So that and make a schedule. Stick to it. Those would be my 2 pieces of advice.
Okay.
Those things help tremendously.
That's great advice. Thank you.
So I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all right. No, I need advice. Believe me,
Why am
I
I
need
giving
advice.
Mark O'Connell advice? I mean, somebody stop me. Okay, go on. So, audiobook. Sorry.
Yeah, so audiobook comes out May 4th on Audible. I had a little success this week when I was a little disappointed when the book came out that we weren't able to get a picture of Hynek on the cover of the book.
Oh, yeah.
But we fixed that with the audiobook. In the artwork for the audiobook, we have Hynek's picture now, and I'm very, very pleased with that.
May I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
How difficult was it for you to get rights to use Hynek's image? Because I've got some ideas for Hynek in my brain that I think would be awesome, but I don't want to. I don't want to get sued.
It's all very straightforward, really. We don't have a whole lot of photos in the book. You may have noticed there aren't a whole lot of photos. I deliberately chose not to put photos of UFOs in the book because those are so iffy. But I did use witnesses' sketches of UFOs, which I think are much more powerful. But in every case, we would go to whoever, if we could determine the owner of the rights to that photo, and we were successful almost every time. Basically, we had three sources. The Center for UFO Studies, Hynek's Foundation. They always gave us permission to use their photos. We had Northwestern University, where Hynek taught for 25 years. They gave us permission. I did a lot of my research in their archives. They were incredibly helpful. And then thirdly, the University of Chicago. And again, working through their archivists, was able to get clearance, was able to get approval to use those photos. So that's where that all came from. Well, and, for a publishing company, that's like standard operations.
Right. No, but I meant specifically of Hynek himself, of J.Allen Hynek.
Pictures of him.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's included in what I'm telling you. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, no, because I'm learning about, like, because again, like, I'm doing a show too, and I'm learning about, well, maybe I should start doing some merchandise, and what can I do, And I love Hynek, and I love just sort of the silhouette image of him in that film, and there's just a lot of ideas I've got, and I would love to.
You'll notice we did not use the still from the movie,
right?
Because that would have cost too much. Columbia Pictures would have charged us an arm and a leg to use that image, so we just skipped that. Yeah, too bad. Yeah, I actually have a better picture from the movie. I have a picture from the movie set of Dr. Hynek sitting with Steven Spielberg and Julia Phillips, the producer, and they're seated in a row in their director's chairs on the set. And all three of them just looking like the happiest people in the world. Like there's no place else they'd rather be. It's a very cool photo.
Gosh, man, I'd love to blow that photo up and frame it. That sounds fun. Okay, sir. Well, I also wanted to let people know where they can find you on Twitter here.
Yes.
Follow Mark on Twitter at MarkO'Connell_1. Because anytime this man releases a book or a new episode of Star Trek or whatever else he's writing and working on, his podcast, I mean, he's a busy man. So follow him. And yeah, Mark, I can't wait to have you back. So we're doing this, by the way, the 24th of April. So it's a Saturday.
Okay.
So yeah, just plan 10 or 15 minutes or however long you want to stop by.
I'll do that. I'm in.
Come on by and happy to have you aboard, sir. Thank you for stopping by and getting weird with us.
Thank you. It's been fun.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Take it easy. Good night, everyone.
Good night. All right, you guys. Mark O'Connell. That was fun. I had a blast. I hope you guys had a good time as well. So I wanted to just say again, hi to everyone in the chat. I wanted to go through some of these comments you guys had here. And yeah, man, we got Mark O'Connell for the big phone haul. What? Awesome, right? Like, this is what it's all about, you guys. Inspiring people to call Congress, to call their local representatives, to call their state representatives, and demand, and I keep saying demand, and I don't want to say demand because that sounds like we're angry. Request. We want to request more UAP data and information. So we're going to be doing it April 24th. So yeah, you guys, I just want to say hi to Explore Lab again. Ethereal Aura, thank you so much for being here. Strafe, I'm glad to see you in the comments. Alien Girl and Rusty, you guys are awesome. You're always here. Space Ghost gave me some great advice over Twitter, man. Thank you for that. So yeah, okay. So thanks, Lou. That was great. No, thank you, Signal, for all the support. Thanks for chatting, everybody. Thanks for being here. So real quick, if you don't know, we are like, last I checked, before we went live, I think we're like 6 subscribers away from 700 subscribers. On the road to 1,000, you guys. Let's bump it up. If you're watching now, you haven't subscribed yet, please do me a favor. Smash that beautiful subscribe button. And guys, ring that bell so that way you do not miss any live interviews. By the way, if you're in the chat and you want to know who's going to be next on my interview, just say, tell us, Lou. Say, tell us, Lou, in the chat. And I will tell you who's going to be on the show next. We got some really killer guests. There's going to be a lot of live streams going on, by the way. Thank you so much, Grandmaster. You are awesome, my dude. Brandy, thank you. Awesome show as usual. I appreciate the love. I love the initiative, Lou, the Big Phone Home, UAP Act Now, and UAP Secrecy. That reminds me, you guys, when you tweet your emails, if you're sending emails, if you're sending a tweet, screenshot it. Take a picture of it, tag me, use the hashtags right here that Aura just put on the screen. Hashtag the Big Phone Home, hashtag UAP Act Now, hashtag NUAP Secrecy. These are the 3 hashtags that we're going into this effort with. If you can fit them into your tweet or your social media posts, please do. We're starting to reach out to senators and congressmen now. I'm calling them. I am giving them the heads up of the Big Phone Home. So again, there's no surprises. We're going to be calling on a Saturday anyway. So chances, more than likely, you're going to be talking to a voicemail, and that's fine. Fill their voicemail boxes, tweet at them as much as we can, retweet as much as we can. I'm telling you, every little bit helps. So again, April 24th, you guys, you're not going to want to miss this. So tell us, Lou. Signal wants to know. Okay. I'm going to tell you. Brandy also wants to know. Calm down, Signal. All right? Just relax. Just relax, my dude. All right. So we've got on two. Okay. All right. First of all, let me just make sure we're done with live streams for this month, which we are. Today's the last day of the month. Wow. Okay. By the way, my days are melting together, everyone. Okay. So next Tuesday, this Tuesday coming up, the 6th of April, we've got Robert Powell from the SCU coming to talk to us on a live stream at 1 p.m. Pacific time. That's pretty good. I think we're going to get Robert Powell from the SCU to join us on the Big Phone Home. He's got some concerns. I've spoken to him on Facebook, and I'm going to address those concerns and talk about them live here on the channel and hopefully get him to commit to the Big Phone Home in whatever way he can. Obviously, he can't represent the entire SCU. That's unethical. But he, as an individual, can absolutely join this effort. We're going to talk about his concerns, so don't miss that live stream. Okay, we've got more. Do you guys want to know more? Do you guys want to know more? I think you do. So the very next day, the 7th of April, we've got a live stream with Danny Silva. We're going to do it, I believe, at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So don't miss our conversation with Danny Silva. Again, another author, UFO activist. I will call him a UFO activist because the information he spreads is always really good. He's always writing articles about our effort, excuse me. I'm thinking of Andreas Freeman Stahl. Danny Silva is someone completely different. I'm sorry. Again, things are melting together, you guys, but we're having Danny Silva on the show. So next week we're having 4 live streams, you guys. 4 live streams. Okay. So on Friday, 3 live streams. On Friday, we are having Chrissy Newton from the debrief.org come on the show. I was trying to squeeze her into March because it's Women's Appreciation Month. But hey, every month is Women Appreciation Month here on the Unidentified Celebrity Review. We always welcome women on this show. We've been accused by one person, of not including women. She clearly didn't research about what we were doing, but that's okay. That's fine. I agree. We always need more women. We always need more people of color. Please join me. The door's wide open. However you want to show your activism. And by the way, I believe Alien Girl is in the chat. And if she is, you guys, she's talking about doing a live stream on April 24th on her channel, which I highly encourage. If you have a channel, if you have a podcast, if you have any sort of social platform like that, use your voice, use that platform to talk about the Big Phone Home effort and encourage your fans and your following to use the hashtags and to call their representatives and use our call lists. Every little bit helps. But so we're going to have Chrissy Newton as well on Friday. So we're going to end the week super strong. Then the following week, this one is going to be, it's going to go either terribly wrong, or it's going to be extremely entertaining. I think in both cases, it's going to be extremely entertaining. We're going to have on Wednesday, the 14th, a week before the Big Phone Home, we're going to have on Mick West. Mick West is going to be on the show. We're going to debate. We're going to have a spirited talk. I had a little tussle with him in a clubhouse chat. It wasn't a tussle. We just spiritedly debated, and I want to do that on my show. So that's what we're going to do. So don't miss that show. All right, let's see. Let's see what people are saying about these guests that we're having here. Okay, so sweet. I'll follow the SCU too. Please do. Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. They are a great organization to follow, and it's just a group of scientists who want to know more about UAPs, which is a good thing. So when people say scientists have no interest in this, you can say, yeah, they do. Check out the SCU. So Explore Lab, heavyweight. I agree. I think it's a great lineup. Some real big hitters. Yes. Danny. I'm learning lots of names, cool people to learn from. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that you are. Bro, look up Ring Makers of Saturn interview with Project Camelot and NASA's Norman C. Bergrun. He has top secret clearance and reveals many planet-sized ships are coming to the system. Maybe. You're going to have to really provide some heavy hitting evidence before I buy this, Grandmaster. I love that to caps. I love that you're excited about it, but send me the information and I'll take a look at it. That's all I can promise you. But I'll be honest, just reading this makes me nervous. I still love you though. I hope you still love me. Okay. So yes, Alien Girl, great idea. Let's do a show on your channel. Agreed. Signal. Totally hit her up and try to get her to do it. Yes, I agree. Excellent work. The situation is getting critical. Maybe. Again, send me the information. I joke. That'll be a great chat. Mike. Kudos, Lou. 100% agree. Thank you, sir. Seagulls, watch out. No flybys on the last one. Yeah, I'm excited to do a stream for the Big Phone Home. Girl, I'm excited that you're doing one. Make sure you make some time to come by and talk on the channel on our day, all right? I want you to stop by the Unidentified Celebrity Review for at least 5 minutes and just tell everyone what you're doing so I can point people to go to your channel. I want to promote it. So don't forget to just, at some point between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific time on the 24th of April, you got to get in there, girl. So I'll be sending you the link. Don't sweat it. Let's see here. Okay, so Mick might confuse you for UAP. 100%. I know I am as big as the Tic Tac that David Fravor described. It's I believe he said it was 40 feet long. I can say I'm about 40 feet wide. Possible. Thanks, guys. All right, Explore Lab's getting a kick out of this. Being a skeptic is great, but Mick is overreaching, in my opinion, but nonetheless a great guest. I agree. I'm going to try, because look, Mick's a very intellectual guy, more intellectual than me. He's a smart dude. And you know, I'm sure I'm not going to look dumb when speaking to Mick West, but sometimes he throws things at you that sometimes I can't follow because he is genuinely smarter than me. But I assure you, there are a lot of pretzels that he twists himself into when it comes to the, you know, the Senate Intelligence Committee, when it comes to testimony from highly credible pilots and witnesses. There's a lot of stuff that he's almost like a snake that eats his own tail. On one end, it's credible, but when it comes to UAPs, all of a sudden it's not. Like, there's a lot of things. But tune in; it's going to be a fun conversation. Okay, here we go. Alien Girl, yes, let's tell the government we are ready. I agree. The info is 100% credible. I work with the top of the world, dude. Send it to me, please. Tweet it. I will check it out. SCU Conference 5. SCU Conference 5 and 6th of June. Okay, so the 5th and 6th of June is the SCU Conference. I wonder if you could attend that virtually. That'd be cool if you could. Mick told me on Twitter he thinks ET life is possible, but we may not be able to reach them. You might be right. You know, we have to open ourselves up to the possibility that Mick might be right, you know, but the problem with arguing against Mick West is we don't have enough data and facts to back up what we're saying. But also the double-edged sword of that is neither does he. So you know, we need to stop talking past each other and start talking to each other, and then find what the common ground is, and then point up and demand it from there, not here. You know, always point up, always beef up, never beef down. It just, you learn that lesson from Jay-Z, baby. You know, always beef up. Okay. I like Mick, interesting perspective. With mainstream coverage that a chunk of an alien planet might be part of Earth's formation. Maybe that's where the building blocks of life came from. I agree, totally. Scientists are all over ET since Avi Loeb. You know, there's a video I wanted to make about Avi Loeb. There's another theory floating around about what that object could have been. And from a couple of scientists that I do like and follow, they tend to agree with this assessment. I haven't done a video on it yet, but it's something I wanted to discuss. And it's, you know, now that I have this, I might request Avi Loeb to come on the show. I have a feeling he would come on. He's done over 300 shows. So for him not to do my show, I mean, I think he'd do it. But with that said, I would love to get his opinion on this counter argument that this object might have been a piece of possibly Pluto, and that there's some good scientific data that backs that theory up. So it's not just, just some crazy person that threw that theory. It's a scientist that wrote the journal and the paper, and it's been peer reviewed, and so it's something to consider. That's all I'm saying. But I'd love to get his opinion on it. Let's see here. The Ringmakers of Saturn, the book is worth $1,000 now. Okay, man. I've never heard of that book, but I don't have $1,000 to buy it. Is there a digital version of it? Say yes, please. You can't follow because some of his stuff makes no sense. I wonder what that's in. I'm sorry. Sometimes I do this with the chat where I forget what this might be in reference to. So sorry, Signal. I love the passion. We need that. Signal, LOL. So someone's again. I'm just glad that somebody else is getting what you're talking about. Sorry. It's virtual. Hell yeah. I'll be here too. I love it. I'm glad that you're going to be here. I hope you are. There's some new theory about traveling data through space extremely fast. Might actually be possible. I think I think there's a whole level of physics that we haven't figured out yet. If I had to take a guess, there's just something that hasn't been mathematically reached yet. That I think a lot of things are possible, but we just haven't figured out the physics that open up the doors to those possibilities. That's it. But we're close. I think we're so close. I think Michikaku's right when he says we're on the verge of a type 1 civilization. Right now we're at type 0. so we're in that transition. So that's an interesting comment. I agree. I heard that Avi Loeb respond. That Avi Loeb did respond. I'm not sure. I don't know if Avi Loeb has responded yet. If he has, point me in the direction because I'd love to check it out. The theory floating around about Oumuamua is one Avi addresses in his book already. Okay, good to know. Do you know if he addresses that specific theory, the chunk of Pluto? I haven't read the book, you guys. I haven't had the time. So I know Zignal is a friend of the show. So you know, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't. He's number one, read the book, and number two, wouldn't steer me in the wrong direction. But I'm curious. We got to get together and talk about this. We got to talk about this Oumuamua and these theories that are floating around. But again, you know, let's try and get Avi Loeb on here as well. That'd be cool. There it is. That would be cool. I agree. Watch Loeb's Al Jazeera first interview. I think I saw that interview. I've seen a lot of Avi Loeb interviews. I've tried to watch almost every one. Obviously I haven't, but you know, Lab messaged me that interview. I just want to double check to make sure I've seen that one. Going to Alpha Centauri, still be back for dinner would be awesome. Oh man. Okay. He's disputed the nitrogen comet theory. If that's right, it's also the very first one we found. So it's just odd. I agree. I mean, look, I was stunned to find out that was the first interstellar object ever tracked in the history of astronomy. That's, to me, the weirdest part about this story, if I'm being honest. I just found that shocking, that there's nothing from outside of our solar system that has ever wandered into our solar system. I know somebody asked Avi Loeb that, and he answered it, and it was a good answer for it. But I still find that odd. But then again, I don't think we have enough instruments to really track space properly. You know, we don't have enough instruments to do our own ocean, let alone space. So there's that. Yes, there's a digital version of Rainmakers of Saturn on archive. Yeah, I mean, Signal, what do you think of this book? Let me know what you think of this book. If you have it, send it to me if it's worth the read. Just read the PDF. LOL. I'll read it. Send it. I'll try and read it. Right now, it's very busy for me. Reading books, I've barely got time for articles, and those are hard enough to squeeze in. But I will, please, say, guys, you know how to get in touch with me. Just send it, and I'll take a look at it. Good day, Luis. Greetings from Germany. Greetings from Germany, Jigglypuff. So happy you're here. I don't know how to say greetings in German. Sorry. Forgive me. I hope you forgive me. I'm sure you will. Okay. That's the link to Project Camelot interview. I don't see a link here. Don't send it in the chat. Send it to my Twitter or send it. You know, by the way, there's a what do they call a link tree now in the chat, in the comment section. So every way to get in touch with me is through that link tree. So if you want to send me a link, send it there, and I will check it out. Hi, Jigglypuff. Those comments are coming in late. Sorry. Don't sweat it. It's okay. Sometimes I take a lot of these comments out of context anyway. Yes, we're really close to actual space travel without rockets, in my opinion. Would not shock me if we are. It also would not shock me if we've already figured it out. We just haven't released the tech yet because we don't know or have anything to apply it to yet. It's possible. Not the same theory. It's another one. Yeah, I think this is a reference to Oumuamua and the theory that I'm talking about. Again, I'll make a video on this, and I'll forward you guys to I'm just forgetting his name. He's a Russian scientist. It was sort of like Lex Fridman, just another one of these guys that I love to follow, who knows infinitely more about reading information like this and deciphering it. And his conclusion was that this paper was pretty good in explaining what Oumuamua was. I haven't seen the person who wrote this paper do 300 interviews explaining their theory yet. And until they do, maybe they this theory shouldn't be taken as seriously. But, you know, I would like to see that, because Avi Loeb, you know, yes, he's selling a book, but he's also put in the work, you know, he's put in the work. So, you know, and I haven't heard a good explanation as to why you shouldn't pay attention to the work. But anyway, I'm out of here. I'm back to watching NASA officials. All right, Grandmaster UV, Godspeed, my friend. Send me those videos, please. The link didn't show what the F. I know. That's what I'm telling you. Send it to my Twitter, my dude. Yes, the astronomical measurements of Oumuamua are indicative of unnatural objects, as they will match similar measurements to our own space junk. Unnatural objects. That's a good point. It's a good point, alien girl. I like it. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm open to it being alien, but I'm also open to it being very regular, you know. So I would, what would have been nice is if, you know, we pointed Hubble, let's say, at the object. You would figure first interstellar object ever recorded, somebody would point a telescope at it, a powerful telescope, to get the best look at it possible. But they just didn't do that. It's just confusing to me. Okay. Trouble is that we can never prove what Oumuamua was, because it's gone. You're right. Avi's main point is that if we invested properly, we could have just taken a photo and solved the whole thing. 100%. I literally just said that. Oh, great minds think alike, Signal. I agree. It's too late. We don't know now. And the thing is I think another object has come in and has left, and they did the exact same thing. They basically ignored it. It's so funny when they're like, oh, there's no data. And then when there's something that we can get data from, they're like, yeah, we're not going to look at it. It's frustrating. It is frustrating for sure. All right, you guys. So that's it. I think I'm going to end the show. That was an awesome live stream. I thank all of you guys every single time, and I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys so damn much for tuning in to this weird little podcast YouTube show that I'm doing. Thank you so much for all of the passion and backing that I'm getting from you guys on Twitter and Facebook, and sharing the hashtags, and just really supporting my zaniness, my crazy ideas. I'm glad that you guys are on board. I'm glad that you guys got my back. It's a good feeling. And I think, you know, we just got Mark O'Connell on the big phone home, you know, and I think there's going to be a lot more that come into play. So stay tuned. Keep up the amazing work. Before we go, of course, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. Look at this. I'm only an hour and a half into this live stream, and my voice is going. I don't know how I'm going to do 8 hours. Come see. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a beautiful disaster to watch, or it's going to be an epic success. Either way, it's going to be fun to watch. And of course, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the music that you hear on the show. Their SoundCloud link is in the description below, so check them out. You guys, again, I know I say it all the time, and I say it a million times, but thank you. Thank you for making this channel a success and helping it grow. I truly appreciate it. So until next time, you guys, stay safe out there. Oh, wait, no, that's not the proper outro. That's not the proper outro. Let me do the proper outro. So to everyone out there, thank you so much for coming aboard, getting weird with me here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. Until next time, you guys, stay safe out there. Peace.